again. So I'm not sure how the audio is going to be on this video. I just got me a brand new super fancy microphone for my camera, a professional grade microphone, and I'm not using my lapel mic, so we'll just kind of see. So I can see down in this box, and this box is nowhere near filled out. I believe that this is one of the boxes that I took from the struggling hive and stuck it on the top of this one, so it was empty when I put it in here. And I do not know what the status of the honey flow is or the nectar flow is right now, if it's stopped or if it's still going, but you can see this is not filled out yet. We're getting there certainly, but it's just not quite there. Let's look at the color of this honey. My favorite is the very light spring honey, and this is getting kind of a little bit darker. If it'll focus, there we go. So you can see that stuff's just a little bit darker. So what we'll probably have is some very light spring honey and some of this darker later spring honey. Mix it together and we'll get a pretty decent flavor. Of course, I'm going to taste this real quick. Ooh, oh my goodness. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Let's get some of this honey out of here. This box, of course, we'll just leave out here. It's nowhere near ready to go. And let's move on to the next box. The bees are acting very calm today, which is good because it is pretty hot today and it has been very, very dry for a long time. It has not rained here to speak of in probably 3 weeks. So they're acting pretty good for weather conditions. All right, so yeah, this is looking nice. This is looking great. Let's take this box. I'm going to use this little DeWalt blower to get the bees out of this box. It's going to look a little bit violent, but it doesn't hurt the bees at all. They'll just fly out and come straight back to the hive. Alright, that's 2 good boxes off of this hive. Let's close it up and see what we get out of it. So you can see I'm doing this extraction in the shed this year, and I don't usually do it in the shed. I usually do it in the shop, but there's a couple of reasons I wanted to do it in the shed, and it may or may not work out well. I'm not sure yet. So out here there's more space. It's not as cluttered, and it's a lot cooler. So I know that most of y'all have seen my honey extraction videos before, but for whoever has not and kind of want to know more details on this process, those frames, or those cells rather, are capped. And this is just a bread knife right here. It works pretty good, it's flexible, and does a good job of kind of following the frame or following the caps. And that's kind of what I prefer to use. There's 150 different things that you can use out there. Most of them work really well, some of them don't work, and it's just kind of a personal preference thing. This seems to work for me. Once the caps are off both sides of the frame, I just put it down here in this Maxent 4-frame radial extractor. I'm not sponsored by Maxent, I just like their equipment. They make really, really good stuff. Now what we'll do is we'll refill, or continue to fill up this extractor and get it slung out. So now we've got 4 frames in the extractor here, and what we'll do is we'll just spin it. I'm supposed to put a lid on it, but I want y'all to see what's going on here. We just spin it. The nicer models of this extractor have an electric motor, and I would encourage you, if you decide to purchase one of these extractors like this, get the model with the electric motor. I can certainly upgrade it, but it's going to be a whole lot better with an electric motor. And what happens in here is the honey just slings out of the cells, and you can see it sticking to the side of the extractor, the inside of the extractor here, and then it runs down and goes through that hole down there, and then it comes out of this hole here, I guess you would call it a bung, and then it goes down into 2 different screens. You've got this screen up here that filters out the big chunks like bee legs and that kind of stuff, big chunks of wax, and then you've got a finer screen on the bottom. You'll see that later on in this video, and it filters out the finer materials that are going to be in there. And by the way, that is some beautiful, beautiful honey. I am so excited about this. And I'm sure some of y'all are thinking, well, how could this possibly work? How does the honey come out of those cells if those cells are to the side, if it's at a 90-degree angle with the side? Well, it's not exactly at a 90-degree angle. So what's going on here, the bees actually build their cells at a slight upward angle, and that's the reason these extractors, these radial extractors like this work like they do, is because because the cells are angled and the honey is able to sling out of the cells even though they're being slung at a 90-degree angle. Somebody came for lunch. So I've been slinging this for a little while. Let's open it up and see how we did. So this frame is a whole lot lighter than it was, and you can see, I hope y'all can see at least, you got some shiny looking cells in there, but I think that's just kind of a honey bubble actually. But we've got the vast majority of the honey out of these frames, and I think we're good here. We can move on to the next round. That's going to do it for those two supers, and we got from those two supers about to right there, which if I had to guess, I'd say maybe 35 pounds. And that doesn't seem like a lot for those two supers, but you have to keep in mind, some of those frames on the outer edges, they don't really always fill up as much, and some of them were just not extractable because there's too many open cells. So most of the ones on the outsides have a lot of open cells like that. So we'll put a lid on this and go get some more. All right, let's check out this hive. I'm really interested to see what they're doing. This is the hive of bees that came from a wild swarm last year. Again, this top box was a fresh box of unfilled comb that I got from a box that wasn't doing so good. Doesn't look like they've done much with it. Let's go ahead and take it off and check the bottom two, or the next two. Actually, it's pretty heavy. They've done something with it. So this box is looking good. From what I can see, it looks like these frames right here are fairly new and have not been filled out really at all. But these in the middle, it looks like they've really done something with that. Yeah, that's looking super nice. And this box is looking really good too, just looking at it from the top. I think this is going to be a winner. Oh, I may be wrong. So not quite. If you look at this middle frame right here, there's still a whole bunch in the middle. And what has happened here is old brood has just now hatched out of these cells. In fact, you can see a cell right here that has not even hatched yet. And as the old brood hatches, they put new, or they'll backfill it with nectar, but this has very recently been hatched. So I am going to take this box anyway, because there is a lot of honey in this box. I'll just have to kind of work around the frames that are not quite capped yet. So I decided to check this hive as well, and I've already been in it, but I wanted to show y'all. Unfortunately, this one's not going to be ready either. I was really expecting it to be ready, and here's the reason. So not all of these cells are capped. Kind of the rule of thumb with harvesting honey is that if 80% of the cells on your frame are capped, you're good. But the problem is if you have too much in there, if you get too much that's not actually honey and you extract it, you'll end up with fermented honey, and that's totally worthless, of course. So sadly, I'm not going to be able to extract this one either. I guess I just came out a little bit too early this year, so that's okay. We'll have something to look forward to in a month or so. And it was kind of the same story with this box. Lots and lots of honey. Not all of it is quite capped yet. So this is kind of interesting. You can see here the frames that I just extracted. You see a very clear two sides kind of in the dead center. You can see a very dark strip, and those are the frames that I extracted before. Those frames I extracted before was probably some stuff from last year, late spring, and the stuff that's very clear on those two edges right there that you see is stuff from this year, early spring. Earlier I mentioned the two different filters here. So this top filter, like I said, is a coarse filter. It gets all the big stuff out, the big chunks of wax, junk like this that you really don't want to have to chew on while you're eating honey and biscuits. And the next one gets the fine particulates, I guess you could say, out. And you can see it's a much finer stream. It has a harder time getting through those, through that wire mesh down there. And it just gets the smaller stuff out is all it does. And this is all that I do to my honey. I don't heat it. I don't do anything else. I don't filter it. I just screen it out like this and eat it. And that's pretty much it. That's all that it needs. I know this is kind of a drop in the bucket, but sometimes I'll retrieve these stray bees that have flown in here to try to get a little snack and gotten caught. Just take them and rinse them off. They won't drown like this. But they can't fly, of course, with honey on their wings. You can see her wings are freed now, and now I'll just put her out in the sunshine, and she should dry off and fly away. All right, let's check out the final hive here. Really stuck this one together. Ooh, I wasn't expecting it, but I think we can take that top box. You can see quite a bit on this one is not quite capped yet, so we may have to leave it. Let's check another one. Yeah. So I think y'all can probably see that pretty well. Quite a bit of open cells still on these frames right here. So lots and lots of honey, or lots and lots of nectar that haven't quite been dried out yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So this is the next frame on this hive, and you can see it is ready to go. Pretty well all of the cells are capped. I would say at least 95%, probably more of these cells are capped. But at this point, I think I'm just going to take the top box and leave the rest of it, let them work on drying these this nectar out into honey, and in a few weeks I'll come back and do it again. So let's just go ahead and take this top box and leave them with the rest of it. So that's going to do it for the frames, but we still need to work on these cappings in here. So these are the cappings that we took off of those frames, and there's a ton of honey left in these cappings. So what I like to do here is just crush them all up, and I usually take the knife. I probably can do it by hand too. I may have done it by hand before, I don't know, but it's going to be pretty messy. But just cut them up, mash them up as much as you can, crush them, and then we'll run them through the strainer. I'm going to try something a little bit different this time. I'm just going to use a regular kitchen colander in a 5-gallon bucket. And I know these holes are pretty big, so it's not going to strain out all the really fine particulates. What I'm going to do is a lot more surface area here. It'll hold a lot more of the cappings, and I'm hoping it'll be a little bit quicker. So once this strains through here, I'll be able to put it in the finer strainer so that it'll get all the little stuff out as well. But I'm thinking this might be a little bit quicker. So guys, that's going to do it for this video. I really appreciate you watching. We ended up getting